The Echoing Realms, Episode 2, The Shadow Between Worlds, Chapter 1, The Weight of Secrets. The Night Whisper cottage sat nestled in a grove of ancient oaks, their gnarled branches reaching skyward like the arms of forgotten giants. The morning light filtered through the canopy, casting dancing shadows across the moss-covered ground. Inside, the air was thick with the scent of chamomile tea and the lingering echoes of a restless night. Lyra sat at the worn wooden table, her hands wrapped around a steaming mug, her eyes distant and troubled. The events of the previous day felt like fragments of a half-remembered dream. The crumbling barriers between worlds, the revelation of her Echo Walker abilities, the terrifying glimpse into realms beyond her understanding. Yet the weight of it all pressed down upon her shoulders like a heavy cloak. Her mother, Elena Nightwhisper, moved about the kitchen with practiced efficiency, her movements betraying none of the worry that creased her brow. She had always been a woman of quiet strength, weathering the storms of life with grace and determination. But today, there was something different in her demeanor, a tension that spoke of secrets long held and truths finally ready to be revealed. "You didn't sleep well," Elena observed, settling into the chair across from her daughter. Her voice was gentle, but her eyes held a depth of understanding that made Lyra's heart skip a beat. "How could I?" Lyra replied, her voice barely above a whisper. "Everything I thought I knew about the world, about myself, it's all changed. The voices, the visions, the way reality seemed to bend and shift around me. What's happening to me, Mother?" Elena reached across the table, her weathered hand covering Lyra's trembling fingers. The touch was warm, comforting, but there was something else there. A faint vibration, a subtle resonance that seemed to echo through Lyra's very bones. "You feel it, don't you?" Elena asked softly. "The connection, the echo that runs between us." Lyra's eyes widened in surprise. You have it too? The ability?" A sad smile crossed Elena's face, years of hidden pain flickering in her eyes. "I was an Echo Walker once, long ago. Before I met your father, before I chose a different path. The gift runs in our bloodline, Lyra, passed down through generations of women who could hear the songs between worlds." The revelation hit Lyra like a physical blow. Her mother, the woman who had raised her with such normalcy, such careful protection from the strange and supernatural, had been hiding this truth all along. "Why didn't you tell me?" Lyra's voice cracked with emotion. "All these years, when I thought I was going mad, when the voices wouldn't stop, you knew what was happening to me." Elena's grip tightened on her daughter's hand. "Because I hoped. I prayed that you might be spared, that the gift might skip your generation, as it sometimes does. I wanted you to have a normal life, free from the burden that comes with our abilities." He moved to the window, gazing out at the peaceful garden with eyes that seemed to see far beyond the present moment. "There's something you need to understand, Lyra. The barriers between worlds aren't just natural phenomena. They were created, maintained by an ancient artifact of immense power. But that artifact was shattered long ago, its pieces scattered across the realms." "The Harmony Stone," Elena said quietly, her voice heavy with old knowledge. Finn nodded. "Without it, the barriers have been slowly weakening for centuries. But now something has changed. The deterioration is accelerating, and if we don't act soon, the consequences will be catastrophic." Lyra felt the weight of destiny settling on her shoulders like a heavy cloak. "What does this have to do with me?" "Everything," Finn replied, turning back to face her. "Echo Walkers aren't just people who can hear between worlds. You're the only ones who can navigate the spaces between realities, who can find and retrieve the fragments of the Harmony Stone. And right now, you may be the only Echo Walker left with the power to do what needs to be done." Chapter 3, The First Lesson. The revelation hung in the air like a physical presence, heavy with implication and possibility. Lyra sank back into her chair, her mind reeling with the magnitude of what Finn was telling her. "I don't understand," she said finally. "Yesterday I could barely control the voices in my head. How am I supposed to save multiple worlds?" Finn's expression softened, and for the first time since his arrival, he smiled. "One step at a time. Every Echo Walker starts where you are now, confused, overwhelmed, uncertain. But with proper training, with understanding of your abilities, you can learn to master the power within you." He gestured toward the door. "Come. Let me show you something." Elena started to protest, but Finn held up a hand. "She needs to understand what she's capable of, Elena. Keeping her in the dark won't protect her. It will only make her more vulnerable." Reluctantly, Elena nodded, and the three of them stepped outside into the morning air. The garden behind the cottage was a riot of color and life, flowers blooming in impossible profusion, their scents mingling in the gentle breeze. "Close your eyes," Finn instructed, positioning himself beside Lyra. "Listen, not with your ears, but with that deeper sense you've been trying to ignore. What do you hear?" Lyra closed her eyes, trying to quiet the constant chatter of her conscious mind. At first, there was only the normal sounds of the garden, bees humming among the flowers, leaves rustling in the breeze, the distant call of birds. But gradually, she became aware of something else, a subtle undercurrent that seemed to flow beneath the surface of reality. "I hear her singing," she said softly. "Like a chorus, but not with voices. It's the flowers, the trees, even the earth itself. They're all connected, all part of some greater harmony." "That's the echo," Finn explained, his voice filled with quiet pride. "The fundamental frequency that connects all living things. Most people go their entire lives without ever hearing it, but for you, it's as natural as breathing." Lyra opened her eyes, and for a moment, the world looked different. She could see faint lines of light connecting every living thing in the garden, a web of energy that pulsed with life and purpose. It was beautiful beyond description and terrifying in its complexity. "Now," Finn continued, "I want you to try something. Focus on that small rosebud there, the one that hasn't opened yet. Listen to its song, feel its rhythm. Can you encourage it to bloom?" Lyra stared at the tight green bud, concentrating on the faint melody she could hear emanating from it. It was a song of potential, of life waiting to unfold. Tentatively, she reached out with her newfound awareness, not with her hands, but with something deeper, more fundamental. The response was immediate and startling. The rosebud began to tremble, its petals slowly unfurling to reveal layers of deep crimson silk. The fragrance that emerged was intoxicating, rich and complex, filling the air with its perfume. "Incredible," Elena breathed, her eyes wide with wonder and concern. "I could never do anything like that, even at the height of my abilities." Finn nodded grimly. "Her power is unlike anything I've encountered, which makes her both our greatest hope and our greatest risk." He turned to Lyra, his expression serious. "What you just did was beautiful, but it was also dangerous. You reached across the barriers between the physical and spiritual realms without any protection, without any understanding of what you were touching. In the wrong circumstances, that kind of uncontrolled power could tear reality apart." Chapter 4. The Shadow's Warning. As if summoned by Finn's words, a chill wind suddenly swept through the garden, carrying with it the scent of something dark and alien. The flowers that had been singing moments before fell silent, their melodies replaced by a discordant whisper that made Lyra's skin crawl. "Something's coming," she said, her voice tight with sudden fear. "Something doesn't belong here." Finn's hand moved to the hilt of a sword that Lyra hadn't noticed before, its blade gleaming with an inner light that seemed to push back against the encroaching darkness. "Shadow wraiths," he said grimly. "Creatures born from the chaos between worlds. They're drawn to uncontrolled echo energy like moths to flame. The air around them began to shimmer and distort, and shapes began to emerge from the growing shadows, tall, gaunt figures wrapped in tattered darkness, their eyes burning with malevolent hunger. They moved with unnatural grace, their forms shifting and flowing like smoke given substance. "Get behind me," Finn commanded, drawing his sword fully. The blade sang as it cleared its sheath, a pure, clear note that seemed to cut through the oppressive atmosphere like a knife. But Lyra found herself stepping forward instead, her hands beginning to glow with the same inner light she had felt when making the rose bloom. "No," she said, her voice stronger than she felt. "This is my fault. I drew them here with my carelessness. Let me try to send them back." "Lyra, you don't understand," Finn began, but she was already reaching out with her power, trying to touch the discordant songs of the shadow creatures. The contact was like grasping a live wire. Pain shot through her consciousness as she encountered minds that were alien, hungry, and utterly without mercy. The wraiths sensed her touch and turned toward her with renewed interest, their whispered voices rising to a keening wail. But instead of retreating, Lyra pressed deeper, trying to understand what they were, where they came from. What she found horrified her. These creatures had once been people, beings from various worlds who had been caught in the spaces between realities when the barriers failed. The chaos had twisted them, stripped away their humanity, and left only hunger and rage. "I can hear them," she gasped, tears streaming down her face. "They're in pain. They're lost, and they can't find their way home." "Lyra, pull back!" Finn shouted, but she was already acting on instinct, reaching out not with force but with compassion, trying to offer the lost souls a different path. The effect was immediate and dramatic. The wraiths stopped their advance, their keening cries shifting to something that sounded almost like weeping. For a moment, their twisted forms seemed to solidify, revealing glimpses of the people they had once been: a young woman with kind eyes, an elderly man with gentle hands, a child who had been in the wrong place at the wrong time. "Go home," Lyra whispered, her voice carrying across dimensions. "Find your peace. The pain doesn't have to last forever." One by one, the shadow wraiths began to fade, their forms dissolving into motes of light that drifted upward like fireflies returning to the stars. The oppressive atmosphere lifted, replaced by a sense of profound peace and gratitude. Lyra collapsed to her knees, drained by the effort but filled with a deep sense of rightness. She had found her purpose, her calling. She was meant to heal the wounds between worlds, to help the lost find their way home. Chapter 5. The Crystal Caverns. "That was unprecedented," Finn said, his voice filled with awe and concern as he helped Lyra to her feet. "I've never seen anyone communicate with shadow wraiths, let alone help them find peace. Your abilities are far beyond what I initially assessed." Elena wrapped her arms around her daughter, her face pale with worry. "Are you all right? That looked incredibly dangerous." "I'm fine," Lyra assured her, though she felt drained and shaky. "But Finn is right. I need training. Real training. I can't keep stumbling around with this power, not when so much depends on learning to use it properly." Finn nodded approvingly. "There's a place I know, a sanctuary where the barriers between worlds are particularly stable. The Crystal Caverns. It's where guardians go to meditate and commune with the deeper mysteries of the echo. If you're willing, I'd like to take you there." "How far?" Elena asked, her protective instincts clearly warring with her understanding of necessity. "A day's journey through the Whispering Woods," Finn replied. "The path is treacherous for most, but with Lyra's abilities, we should be able to navigate it safely." Lyra looked between her mother and the guardian, feeling the weight of decision pressing down on her. Everything in her life had changed in the span of 2 days, and now she was being asked to leave the only home she had ever known to venture into unknown dangers. But the memory of the shadow wraith's gratitude, the sense of rightness she had felt when helping them find peace, made the choice clear. "I'll go," she said firmly. But I want to understand everything about the Harmony Stone, about the barriers between worlds, about what it really means to be an Echo Walker. All of that and more, Finn promised. The crystal caverns hold many secrets, and some of them may be crucial to our quest. They spent the rest of the morning preparing for the journey. Elena packed supplies with the efficiency of someone who had done this before, her movements betraying a familiarity with travel and danger that surprised Lyra. Finn checked and rechecked his equipment, his sword and various other tools that Lyra was beginning to realize were far more than they appeared. As they prepared to leave, Elena pulled her daughter aside for a private moment. "I know I can't stop you from going," she said quietly. "And perhaps I shouldn't. But promise me you'll be careful. The power you carry, it's greater than anything our family has ever produced. That makes you precious beyond measure, but it also makes you a target." "I promise," Lyra said, embracing her mother tightly. "And I promise I'll come back." "See that you do," Elena replied, pressing something small and warm into Lyra's hand. "This was your grandmother's. It will help you stay grounded when the echoes become overwhelming." Lyra looked down to see a small pendant, similar to the one her mother wore but older, its crystal heart pulsing with a gentle inner light. "Thank you," she whispered, fastening the chain around her neck. The pendant settled against her chest with a comforting weight, and immediately she felt more centered, more in control of the power flowing through her. Chapter 6. The Whispering Woods. The path into the Whispering Woods was barely visible, little more than a deer track winding between ancient trees whose trunks were so massive that it would take a dozen people holding hands to encircle them. The canopy overhead was so thick that only scattered beams of sunlight penetrated to the forest floor, creating a twilight world of green shadows and dancing light. "Stay close," Finn warned as they entered the woods. "The trees here are old, older than human civilization, and they remember things that most of the world has forgotten. They're not hostile, but they can be unpredictable." Lyra could hear what he meant almost immediately. The whispers that gave the woods their name weren't just the sound of wind through leaves. They were actual voices, speaking in languages she didn't recognize, but somehow understood. They spoke of ancient secrets, of times when the barriers between worlds were thin, of creatures and peoples that had passed through these woods on journeys between realities. "They're telling stories," she said wonderingly, pausing to place her hand against the bark of a particularly massive oak. "Stories of travelers, of magic, of times when the world was different. The trees are repositories of memory," Finn explained, his voice respectful. "They've witnessed the passage of countless echo walkers over the centuries. Some say they can even show you visions of the past, if you know how to ask properly." As they walked deeper into the woods, Lyra became increasingly aware of the complex web of life surrounding them. Every tree, every flower, every blade of grass was connected to every other living thing by threads of light and sound that only she could perceive. It was like walking through a vast, living symphony, each element contributing its own unique voice to the greater harmony. But there were discordant notes as well, places where the harmony was broken, where something had gone wrong. These spots felt cold and empty, like wounds in the fabric of reality itself. "What are those?" she asked, pointing to a particularly dark patch where nothing seemed to grow. Finn's expression grew grim. "Scars," he said simply. "Places where the barriers between worlds have been damaged. They're becoming more common as the Harmony Stone's influence continues to fade." They paused at one of these scars, and Lyra could feel the wrongness of it like a physical ache. The air shimmered with unstable energy, and she caught glimpses of other places, other worlds, flickering in and out of existence like mirages. "Can they be healed?" she asked. "Perhaps," Finn replied, "with the right knowledge, the right power, but it would be incredibly dangerous. The energies involved could easily tear a person apart if they weren't properly prepared." Lyra nodded, but she filed the information away for later consideration. If these scars were symptoms of the greater problem, then healing them might be part of the solution. They continued their journey through the afternoon, the path winding ever deeper into the heart of the woods. The whispers of the trees grew stronger, more insistent, and Lyra began to pick out individual voices, individual stories. One tree spoke of a great battle fought in its shadow, where echo walkers had stood against creatures from the void between worlds. Another remembered a time of peace, when beings from different realms had met in harmony beneath its branches. A third, ancient beyond measure, whispered of the creation of the Harmony Stone itself, of the great sacrifice that had been made to bring order to the chaos between worlds. The trees remember the stone's creation, Lyra said suddenly, stopping in her tracks. They were there when it happened. Finn turned to her with interest. What do they say? Lyra pressed her hands against the ancient bark, opening herself fully to the tree's memories. The visions that flooded her mind were overwhelming. Images of a time when the boundaries between worlds were fluid, when chaos reigned and reality itself was in constant flux. She saw the great echo walkers of that age, beings of immense power and wisdom who had recognized that something had to be done to bring stability to the cosmos. She witnessed their great working, the creation of a crystalline artifact that would serve as an anchor point for reality itself. But she also saw the cost, the lives that had been sacrificed, the power that had been poured into the stone's creation, the way its makers had given up their own existence to ensure its success. It wasn't just created, she gasped, pulling her hands away from the tree. It was born from sacrifice. The greatest echo walkers of that age gave their lives to make it, pouring their very essence into the crystal matrix. That explains its power, Finn said thoughtfully. And perhaps why it's so difficult to repair. The stone isn't just a tool, it's a living thing, created from the combined souls of its makers. As evening approached, they finally reached their destination. The entrance to the crystal caverns was hidden behind a waterfall that cascaded down a cliff face covered in luminescent moss. The sound of falling water filled the air, but underneath it, Lyra could hear something else, a deep, resonant humming that seemed to come from the earth itself. The caverns sing, Finn explained, leading her behind the waterfall. The crystals inside resonate with the echo in ways that amplify and purify it. It's one of the few places left where the barriers between worlds are completely stable. The passage behind the waterfall was narrow and winding, carved from living rock that sparkled with embedded crystals. As they descended, the humming grew stronger, more complex, until it became a full chorus of crystalline voices, singing in perfect harmony. When they finally emerged into the main cavern, Lyra gasped in wonder. The space was vast, its ceiling lost in shadows high above, and every surface was covered in crystals of every conceivable size and color. They ranged from tiny formations no larger than her thumb to massive pillars that stretched from floor to ceiling, and each one glowed with its own inner light. But it was the sound that truly took her breath away. The crystals were singing, their voices blending together in a harmony so perfect, so pure, that it brought tears to her eyes. It was the echo made manifest, the fundamental song of creation itself given voice through living stone. It's beautiful, she whispered, her voice barely audible over the crystal chorus. And powerful, Finn added. The crystals here can amplify an echo walker's abilities 100-fold, but they can also overwhelm someone who isn't properly prepared. We'll need to be careful. They made their way deeper into the cavern, following paths that seemed to have been carved by the crystals themselves. Lyra could feel the power building around her, the echo growing stronger with each step. Her pendant grew warm against her chest, helping to keep her grounded as the crystalline voices threatened to sweep her away. At the heart of the cavern, they found what they had come for. A formation unlike any other, a cluster of crystals that seemed to pulse with their own heartbeat. The largest crystal in the center was easily twice Lyra's height, its surface smooth and flawless, its interior filled with swirling patterns of light that reminded her of galaxies spinning in the depths of space. "The Heartstone," Finn said reverently. "Legend says it's a fragment of the original Harmony Stone, left here as a guardian and guide for future Echo Walkers." Lyra approached the crystal slowly, drawn by its song. Unlike the other crystals in the cavern, this one's voice was complex, layered with harmonies and melodies that spoke of ancient wisdom and deep understanding. As she drew closer, the crystal's glow intensified, and she began to see images forming in its depths, visions of other worlds, other times, other Echo Walkers who had stood where she now stood. "It's showing me something," she said, her voice filled with wonder. "I can see a mountain. Snow-covered peaks reaching toward the sky. And there's something there, something important." The vision sharpened, and she saw a temple carved from ice and stone, its spires reaching toward the heavens like frozen prayers. Deep within the temple, she glimpsed something that made her heart race, a shard of crystal that pulsed with the same rhythm as the Heartstone, but darker, more complex. "The first fragment," she breathed. "It's in the Skirich Peaks, in a temple of ice. I can see the path, the way to reach it." Finn's eyes widened with excitement. The Skirich Peaks, that's at the edge of the known world, where the barriers between realms are thinnest. It would be incredibly dangerous, but if there's truly a fragment there— "There is," Lyra said with absolute certainty. "I can feel it calling to me, like recognizing like. But there's something else, something guarding it. A presence that's been waiting for a very long time." The vision faded, leaving her standing before the Heartstone, with tears streaming down her face. The crystal's song had changed, becoming more urgent, more insistent. "It's not just showing me where to go," she realized. "It's warning me. The fragment isn't just hidden, it's trapped. And whatever is guarding it has been waiting for an Echo Walker to come and claim it." "Then we'll have to be prepared for anything," Finn said grimly. "But first, you need to complete your training. The power you'll need to face whatever waits in the Skirich Peaks, it's beyond anything you've attempted so far." Lyra nodded, understanding the magnitude of what lay ahead. But she also felt a deep sense of purpose, a certainty that this was her destiny. The shadow wraiths she had helped find peace, the visions in the Heartstone, the growing strength of her abilities, it all pointed toward one inescapable conclusion. She was meant to restore the Harmony Stone, to heal the wounds between worlds, to bring peace to the chaos that threatened all of reality. It would be dangerous, perhaps impossible, but she had to try. The fate of countless worlds depended on it. And so as the Crystal Caverns sang their ancient song around her, Lyra Netwhisper prepared to take the first steps on a journey that would either save all of existence or destroy it in the attempt. The first fragment awaited, and with it the beginning of either salvation or catastrophe. There was no turning back now.